Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Monday to you. It's tax day.
Gentlemen, enough of this. How about taking up the tax?
How about taking up the carpet?
I still insist we must take up the tax.
He's right. You've got to take up the tax before you can take up the carpet.
I give all my time and energy to my duties, and what do I get?
You get awfully tiresome after a while.
Filers across the United States have until midnight local time to either file electronically or get it to a post office. Some post offices are staying open till midnight to give you a chance to do that. And you also have to file for your extension if that's what you're going to do, the 6 months extension. But if you owe money, you still have to pay it by midnight tonight, so you can't dodge that there. And the word is that when it's all said and done, half of the American households don't owe any federal income tax. And in fact, you're going to get some back that they've been holding on to for you for a couple of months. That's 69 million households, and you don't get off scot-free, though. You got state taxes, local income taxes, property taxes, payroll taxes, Medicare taxes, Social Security. It's all right there, and it's all today on tax day. Yesterday was Palm Sunday. Pope Benedict XVI told a crowd at the Vatican that technology cannot replace God. He said technology's improved life for mankind, but it's also increased the possibility for evil. And he said the popes should abandon the pride of wanting to become God. That's what he said yesterday. I was at St. John's Student Parish. You know, the Palm Sunday Mass is one of the longest ones of the year. It's just a little bit extra long. And I happened to be sitting in a pew, and I got there late. And Christine had saved a seat for me, and so I snuggled into my seat about, 8 minutes or so after the start of the services. And then I noticed Tom and Lupe Izzo were sitting right in front of me. And across the aisle was Sam and Judy Ide. And Sam Ide, I couldn't help but watch him through the whole service. He had his palm in his hand, because they give you a palm at the start of the service, because it's Palm Sunday. And he was weaving this thing into this really cool kind of, not knitted, it was like a weaved shape. Very precise, and I wanted to give him my palm and have him do mine because I thought it would have been really cool. And I think Stephen Izzo was weaving his too, so I haven't learned how to weave a palm, but I'm going to have to learn from these folks. It was pretty neat. I also on Sunday saw The Conspirator, that movie that everyone's talking about. It was number 9 at the box office, I think, this weekend, and I can see why. That Robert Redford movie, it's a Civil War drama. The first 2 minutes were good, and the rest of it was a complete snooze, I'm sorry to say. And I hope that doesn't make me sound unsophisticated, but I thought it was very dull. 10 minutes after the hour, the 8-day celebration of Passover starts tonight with a traditional meal called the Seder, and it all has to do with the Egyptians and escaping slavery and Exodus and all the rest, and that is tonight. So lots of things happening today. Also, the Boston Marathon is today. 27,000 runners are gearing up for the 115th Boston Marathon. That's the second largest field in history. It starts at 9 a.m. this morning. Can you imagine? That would be like, imagine if you went to the Detroit Red Wing game and the whole stadium got up and started running down Woodward Avenue. Like they all filed out of Joe Louis Arena and started running. It's even more. That holds 20,000. And this is 27,000 runners hitting the streets. Speaking of the Red Wings, I went on Saturday. Christine and I were invited to go to the Red Wing playoff game, and it was a 1 o'clock start because NBC showed the game nationally. So we get down there to Hockeytown, and we're sitting right on the blue line and right in front of the goaltender for the Coyotes. And in the first period, bam, 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 3 goals from the Red Wings right in front of us. And Pat and I are looking at each other like, well, it's not going to get much better than that here in Hockeytown. So we started sort of planning our exit strategy because we didn't want to get stuck in traffic. When should we leave? So we get into the second period, and suddenly the Wings go up 4-0, and we're like, oh, yeah, where are we going to have dinner? You know, that kind of thing. And the Coyotes scored 1 goal, and we thought, well, that's. So we left about after the second period. We headed for the parking deck. And I said to Pat, because he played college football, I said, in football, what would a 4-1 lead equate to? And he said, oh, man, that's like, 38-7. There's no way they're going to catch up. Well, as we're in the car listening on the radio, the Coyotes scored another goal. Then they scored another goal. Suddenly it's 4-3. And we're feeling pretty stupid with 9 minutes left, and we're driving up into Birmingham on I-75 thinking, oh, man, What if they tie? It's going to be exciting, and so we left a little bit early on that one there. But the Red Wings end up winning. They're up 2-0 in the series, and congratulations to them. They will play tonight very late, 10:30 Eastern Time in Phoenix. So if you can't stay up and watch that game tonight, we'll have the first report for you in the morning, tomorrow morning, with Ken Cal. Pete Hoekstra has decided not to run for the United States Senate. The former congressman spent the better part of 2 decades going back and forth to Washington, D.C., sent a letter out, said it's just not the right thing for his family at the time, and it was a tough decision because there were plenty of reasons to run and plenty of reasons not to run. And so later in the program, Secretary of State Terry Lynn Land, who would, I think, be the front runner now for that nomination, will join us. Also, Saul Lanusis, who is thinking of running, will join us. And Congressman Hoekstra, the former congressman, is out of the country, so he's going to join us later in the week. And we'll take a look at that race and what happens next. Senator Debbie Stabenow, who is going to try to defend her seat in the re-elect against whichever Republican surfaces, will be with us tomorrow. Gary Austin, the news anchor, is with us right now. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Michael Patrick. It sounds like you were one of those, had such a busy weekend, all of this tax business is behind you, right?
Yeah, it was a pure Michigan weekend for me.
Man,
going to the Red Wings game and going to Mass and going to church and just enjoying. What did I do? I don't even remember what I did Friday. But, I mean, I had a great time, and it's a pure Michigan Monday on the program right now. And so I wonder if the ski operators are hoping it snows. Because, believe it or not, Gary, the forecasters were saying there could be 2 to 4 inches of snow later this morning in Grand Rapids and Detroit and Lansing. Can you believe that?
Yeah, we've got winter weather advisories up all over the place, and yeah, it could be the last blast. You know, back to this tax business here, if you were one of those who couldn't wrap it up even with the extension, the few extra days and what have you, had a few extra days this time to get them in, due by midnight tonight, you can file an extension, but it's important to note here, October 17th, that's the deadline to get the extension. But if you owe money, you've got to have a check into the government by today. So you've got to do something. You can't just let it slide completely. Or if you don't have money in, if you owe, you could face interest and possible penalties to boot. So
your
keep that in
report
mind.
is a service of
Our friends at American Metal Roofs, and you can learn more by checking out this website, AmericanMetalRoofs.com, AmericanMetalRoofs.com. Call them if you'd like as well. There's another option for you, 877-569-4700.
Donald Trump is taking shots at Mitt Romney.
He is.
He is. He's saying he's a better businessman than Mitt Romney. He said this on CNN, and he says, here's a quote from Donald Trump. I have much, much bigger net worth. I mean my net worth many, many, many times Mitt Romney. And he goes on to call Mitt Romney a small business guy.
Wow.
And he says, he created thousands of jobs, and he built a great company. But Donald Trump, remember, he's trying to set himself apart in case he decides to run for president. Mitt Romney would be one of his opponents.
Yeah, with those kind of comments, sound pretty serious there, Donald Trump.
Well,
Sounds like.
he's been taking shots at Obama, but now that's the first time I remember him taking a shot at a Republican other than George W. Bush.
Do you think at this point, for the Republic, I know it's real early, do you think Mitt Romney's the perceived front runner at this point? Sounds like it.
No,
right?
I don't know. I don't think people take him seriously, but the polling is starting to indicate, that he is taken seriously.
No,
but even the executives...
I mean Mitt Romney. I mean, do you think he's the perceived front runner at this point?
Yes, but I don't think it's a strong position. I don't. I think it's a default position.
Yeah, so many Republicans are eyeing this thing.
I think he seems like the serious, adult candidate. He's the one that, has got the experience. He ran last time. He's got name recognition, and he's above the fray a bit. But I don't know that people warm to him. That's just my sense. And as for Donald Trump, even the people at NBC are now saying they don't think he's really running. They say, quote, that's just Donald being Donald.
He's just having fun with it?
Enjoying the spotlight.
Yeah.
That's what I hear anyway.
Did you see that story out of the Detroit News that says that Michigan is, quote, fairly ready in case of problems with nuclear power plants?
Well, that's good to know.
Fairly. That's
Maybe
kind of like
it'll be a fairly nuclear event.
Man, I don't know, but these findings published by the news, and they were found in the Journal of the American Medical Association, too. State officials agreeing with revelations in the article that Michigan has several gaps in getting ready for the public, just in case the worst should happen, including lack of resources for lasting food and water for radiation contamination and that sort of thing. However, the Michigan Department of Community Health says Michigan has a comprehensive plan which has been tested in recent months. Just in case, heaven forbid, the worst should happen.
Well, it's nice to know we're fairly ready.
Yep.
Amtrak ridership is up.
Yeah, it sure is. All aboard Amtrak. You got to figure high gasoline prices, a big reason for that.
I would think so, too. We would take the train. Emergency manager Joseph Harris has suspended the decision-making powers in Benton Harbor. And Mark Gaffney, the president of the AFL-CIO, says it's sad news for democracy in Michigan. With the stripping of all power of duly elected officials in Benton Harbor, we can now see the true nature of the emergency manager system. Benton Harbor had been struggling with a controversial trash hauling contract, I guess, and there's competition for water services and that sort of thing. So it's 18 minutes after the hour. That's Gary Austin. I'm Michael Patrick Shields, brought to you this morning by American Metal Roofs. You can find them at AmericanMetalRoofs.com and take the Love Train right to the next segment. We'll be with you in 4 minutes. Tax day for you. The tax man will be looking for you at midnight tonight, whether you file electronically or you drop it in the old post office there. You've got till midnight on tax day. It's normally April 15th, but because of a holiday in Washington, D.C., it's been pushed back to today, which is also the running of the Boston Marathon. Tax man's coming. And believe it or not, it is snowing outside of our American Metal Roof studio here, just a couple blocks from the Capitol in the Gillespie Group Stadium District building. Out of our front window, which looks right out onto the Avenue of Michigan, there are snowdrops, snowflakes, blowing. I almost can't believe I'm seeing it, to tell you the truth. You know, the weird thing is this is the latest Easter on record, and it's still threatening to be nasty all week. Snowfall. And that's what the weatherman is saying. National Weather Service has issued a winter weather advisory for Allegan and Berry counties. Hazardous weather for other areas, too, this morning. Forecasters say, be ready for this, anywhere from 1 to 5 inches of snow could fall by 8 o'clock this morning before temperatures rise into the 40s and then presumably melt it all. Don't let it snow. Passengers will begin using the new terminal at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport by the end of the month. 39 million big ones. Terminal was unveiled to the public last weekend. It'll be more convenient and make your travel more comfortable. 2 of Michigan's freshman U.S. House members have substantial debt lingering from last year's contentious elections, putting them behind in what's shaping up to be a competitive fundraising rush for next year's funds. Republican Congressman Justin Amash of Cascade Township and Dan Banashek of Crystal Falls clocked in with more than $100,000 in debts and obligations in the first quarter of this year, according to reports from the Federal Election Commission. In Banashek's case, his campaign technically owes the candidate himself money, $113,000 total, and filings show that the Amash campaign in West Michigan owes the candidate more than $10,000, and 3 campaign consultancies, 1 in Washington, 2 in Grand Rapids, more than $160,000. And we've got 20 months to go till the next U.S. House election. Believe it or not, it's becoming clear that fundraising is going to be big in those campaigns. Saul Lanusis, in fact, is on the other end of our line right now, the former chair of the Michigan Republican Party and the founder of Coast to Coast Strategies, and he knows a lot about these sorts of things. Good morning to you, Saul.
Good morning.
Is that unusual that members of the House would still have bills from their previous election? In this case, it's Banashek and Amash?
Not really. I mean, it's especially the loans to themselves and sometimes to the consultants that are, known as win bonuses type of thing. So it's hard to say exactly what they are. But, for an incumbent congressman, I mean, that's the kind of thing that they can take care of over, a natural period of time here going into the next election. So.
What did you make of Pete Hoekstra's decision not to run for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate? The announcement was Friday. Amanda told me he left the country then. He'll be back during the week, and issued a letter that basically said, there were reasons to run, there were reasons not to run, and I decided for my family it wasn't time to do it.
Well, it's a very tough decision for everybody to make. I mean, this is a huge undertaking. There's a lot of challenges. It's a huge commitment, a time commitment, financial commitment. And so I think that, for a variety of reasons in his own personal mind, it just wasn't the right time for him. But, he would have been a very strong candidate. I think he did extremely well in the gubernatorial race. He built a huge following statewide. I think every poll showed that starting out, he would have been the leading candidate, somebody that was very well respected, both on the Republican and the Democrat side. So, he would have been a very strong candidate. I think it's too bad that, he didn't necessarily step forward. But as he also said, that he's not done with politics. This isn't the end of him, so to speak, from a political standpoint. And coming off a one statewide race, I think it's not unusual for somebody to take a couple, cycles to take a break and kind of rejuvenate and get his personal life back in order and take some rest, take some family time. So I think we'll still hear from Pete Hoekstra in the future here.
Well, what could his potential future be? I mean, presuming that maybe a Republican wins the White House, would there be a role for him there? Is that what he's thinking? Or, I mean, really, what future could he have?
Well, I think he could, yeah, very much. I mean, I think Pete Hoekstra would be a very natural person to be put in any administration. He's very talented, very respected on foreign affairs and international affairs. So that would be a natural area for him. Senator Levin is going to be up for re-election the next cycle. He's, again, somebody that could be a potential statewide candidate. And obviously we have term limits here on the governor's side. So after, 2 terms, there's nothing that doesn't say that he might not come back and run for governor. So I think his options are fairly limitless. I think he is well-respected and very talented, and we could see him just about anywhere.
What about Solonuzis' options? Now, there was talk, and you spoke with us about the possibility you might run for United States Senate. This obviously is a big factor in your decision-making, I would think.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the fact that he dropped out really opens up the field even more. I think that, I've continued to have conversations, and there's been, some pretty encouraging, I think, developments from a kind of a personal, selfish standpoint in taking a look at this thing. But I've also made an effort to reach out to other people who are potentially running and are interested in running. And right now, everybody is really evaluating it. And, I continue to talk to Republican leaders and donors and encourage them to turn around and encourage the people they think would be the strongest to run. I think anybody who's ever considering running for office is taking a look at, what kind of base can you put together, what kind of support level can you gain. And I think that most Michigan Republicans see this as a very big opportunity and a huge responsibility that not only Michigan but the country needs, at this stage of the game, at this stage of our country's history, we need some checks and balances given, the kinds of aggressive moves President Obama has been making on a policy front.
Near as I can tell, there are three very visible potential candidates for U.S. Senate on the Republican side: yourself, Terry Lynn Land, and former Judge Randy Heckman. Do you have any others that you've spoken to who are considering running that are notable?
Yeah, Dr. Rob Steele, who ran for Congress against John Dingell, is interested, and touched base with him, and I think he's very seriously considering it.
Yeah, but he's got he's got a huge mountain to climb in terms of statewide recognition, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. But again, that's the kind of thing that happens in a political campaign. That's what it's all about. You basically are, putting yourself out there as an individual, getting name ID, getting recognition, and then talking about the issues. And so it's, I think that it's always a disadvantage for any challenger going against a long-term incumbent. But when you have somebody like a Debbie Stabenow, who's the most liberal member of the United States Senate, who consistently votes for Barack Obama, who is one of the Democrats, rubber stamps and blindly votes on a partisan level, to be able to challenge somebody. I mean, this is why her reelect numbers are as low as they are. I mean, the citizens of Michigan have said, even against a generic candidate, nobody, 38% are willing to reelect her right off the bat. I mean, she does not have great numbers, and for an incumbent, that's where the vulnerability is. Then it's up to the challengers when a campaign starts to prove themselves. But when she's barely getting 50% when you put her up against a Solonuzis or a Terry Land, I think those are horrible numbers for somebody who's been, in the United States Senate for now almost 6 years. In her case, a career politician for almost 30 years, to be at those low numbers. So I think the opportunities are huge.
What she is getting, though, according to what I understand, is money. She's a very good fundraiser.
Sure. And she's going to need every single penny of it to defend her record. This is going to be a tough race for her. She voted for Obamacare. She voted for the bailouts. She's voted for, all the stimulus. She's voted for unlimited spending that has now put our children and grandchildren in debt. Literally, if the United States government today stopped spending altogether, just stopped spending money and just put 100% of the debt, 100% of our intake back to paying down the debt, it would take over 100 years to pay off the debt. We are in horrible shape, and the Democrats blindly keep spending more money, making more commitments, the kind of thing that's just unsustainable. And look at what we're doing to our children and grandchildren. I think she's going to need a lot of money to defend her record.
Which one of the four candidates that we've talked about, potential Republican nominees, has the easiest road to the nomination, do you think?
Well, I don't think there's any such thing as an easy road. If all four decided to run and all four jumped in and more, I think this is going to be very competitive. And people will have to make their case, and we'll have to see what the mood of the Republican electorate is, decide who the nominee is. What kind of candidate do they prefer? What kind of positions do people stake out? What kind of personality best fits? So I don't think there's any easy answers, and I think it would be a mistake for anybody to say one person or the other would be, at this stage of the game, the best, the easiest, or the most likely candidate.
Does the Republican Party, get together with the four of you at some stage and say, look, rather than dividing all of our efforts with fundraising and having a primary, we got to beat an incumbent, let's anoint someone and get the money and the support behind that person, and let's go from here?
That rarely happens. It does happen. There will at least be conversations about trying to, rally folks together. And look, as someone who's been a former party chairman, I'm very conscious of the fact that we want to focus our resources and be in the best shape possible to challenge an incumbent. So, and I have said very openly, I said I think there are people that potentially could be stronger and in better shape to run, and that's one of the reasons I haven't jumped in yet. I'm looking not only at my personal situation, but the field in general, and encouraging people to get out there. I wish Pete Hoekstra would have run. I think if Pete would have been out there, in 30 to 45 days, we would have gotten a pretty good feel for the kind of support that he could generate. We know what his potential was, but until you get out in the field and people start saying yes and putting their name on the dotted line and signing those checks and putting together an organization, it's really theoretical, and that's why it's so difficult in this process to say today in a vacuum who would be a better, stronger, or easier nominee than somebody else.
Well, you won't find a better communicator than Saul Anusis, and that's a big part of getting elected these days. So we appreciate you communicating with us this morning, and I know you'll let us know when you get closer to decision time.
Especially if we're not snowed in.
Yeah, it's snowing. I just can't even believe it. It's welcome
to either can I.
Welcome to Pure Michigan, and that's Saul Anusis, Coast to Coast Strategies, former chair of the Michigan Republican Party and potential candidate for United States Senate, the Republican nomination to run against Debbie Stabenow. Senator Stabenow will join us tomorrow morning. We'll see what she thinks. Let's not let it snow, but it's happening across Michigan. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Well, if you didn't believe me, you can believe me now. I'm out here on the Avenue of Michigan, just a couple blocks from the Capitol, right in front of our American Metal Roof studio, and it is snowing. If you can see it on Fox 47, or you can hear in the background the slushy sounds of the cars going by. This is the Hyundai, for instance, that I'm test driving for Freeborough Automotive, and you can see as I run my hand across the top, there is a dusting of snow on top of this car, and my hair probably is a little frosty by now, having stood out here just about, a minute or so. Yeah, it's April 18th, and it's snowing. And it's the latest Easter in years, and it's threatening to snow for Easter. The Masters is finished. Tax Day is today, and believe it or not, the flakes are falling. We'll get a weather update from my brother Robert Shields in Toledo. He's the chief meteorologist at CBS there. And it's not a joke. You might say April Fool's Day was April 1st. What are you talking about snow now for? I'm not joking. As you can see and hear on the radio, it is snowing across Michigan, and there have been winter weather advisories for certain counties in West Michigan. And your commute this morning, believe it or not, may be affected by the snowfall. It is also the running of the Boston Marathon today, a big field of 27,000 runners, thank you, including Dick Miles from Lansing, who has run in a number of Boston Marathons. He writes about it for the Lansing State Journal, and I spoke with him about his run this morning in Boston. 27,000, second biggest field ever, Dick Miles. How many Boston Marathons have you run in?
This will be 17.
17 Boston Marathons. There are people who make it once and make it a bucket list kind of thing to do. And What do you try to have a goal when you start off with the marathon? Do you want to finish better than you did last year, or how does it work? How do you motivate yourself?
Well, I will say that as I get older, my goals get quite a bit more modest. But in terms of motivation, just being there is an accomplishment in itself, because it's a terrific event in a great city. And I think the one thing that makes Boston special is that you do have to qualify for it. And so everybody wants to get in, and it's kind of the pinnacle of running if you can get into Boston.
Can you get yourself to the front so that you can sprint out in front of everyone else and then say that you led the Boston Marathon?
You cannot do that because they put you in corrals according to your qualifying time. So, us mid-packers, we're quite a ways back from the start.
So that you have that handicap to start with. They put all the fast people in the front?
Well, they do. I mean, everybody is seated according to their qualifiers. So the fastest are in the front and the slowest are in the back. And then for the past several years, they've done the start in waves because it's a pretty narrow start. It's a two-lane road, and you can't have 27,000 people trying to go down the same road at the same time. So this year they're doing three waves. So and that makes it a little bit easier to get a good start. And then the timing is electronic, so it's start line to finish line, so you're not handicapped by being back.
I see. That's good. A very egalitarian. Have you ever not finished the race in the 17 starts?
That's one. No, I've always finished, and I mean that's obviously a goal. You have to respect the distance for sure, because it's 26.2 miles is a long way to run, no matter how you measure it. And so the trick is to just make sure that you kind of control yourself at the beginning, so you've got something left, especially when you hit the hills at mile 17.
That's what they call Heartbreak Hill, right?
Exactly, yeah. Heartbreak is between mile 20 and 21, which is about the worst time you can get a hill in a marathon.
But that's one of the challenges of the Boston Marathon. And can you tell us what it feels like when you come across the finish line?
It feels great to stop running. But it is, I mean, obviously it's exhilarating because, there are big crowds all the way along, but certainly at the finish. And you kind of have like a quarter-mile straightaway where you can see it and you can hear everybody. And so, I mean, it's very exhilarating. There's nothing like it.
Well, travel safely. Have a great time at the Boston Marathon on Monday. We'll read about it, I'm sure, at lsj.com and the Lansing State Journal. And best wishes to you, sir.
Thanks very much.
Back inside the American Metal Roof studio this morning, Robert Shields, the chief meteorologist at WTOL TV 11 CBS in Ohio there for the better part of 20 years now. I don't need to tell you it's snowing this morning.
That it is. Actually, there's a pretty heavy band of snow just north of South Bend near Niles, Michigan. It extends east into Coldwater and Jackson, where the visibility is obscured at a quarter of a mile or less, and the snow is pouring down just south of you.
Is this some kind of a sick joke?
You know what? Our memories tend to be very short when it comes to weather, and usually when you talk to a meteorologist on a day like today, it doesn't get to be as exciting. Because I'm going to tell you, do you remember that in 2009, 2 years ago?
No.
Detroit Metro reported 7 inches of snow in the month of April 2 years ago. And right there in Lansing in 2005, you had 6 inches of snow in the month of April. So while it's a little bit unusual, it's certainly not
yeah, but
rare.
This is April 18th. I mean, we already had the Masters tournament. We've already, I mean, and it's Easter is the latest it's ever going to be, and we're going to have snow on the ground for. It's not going to stick, is it, or is it?
Just in the grass, really. The temperature in Lansing is now 32, and down in Jackson, though, it's 30 degrees. So there's going to be a little bit of slushy snow on the streets and sidewalks. This kind of day when you're a television meteorologist, you just pretty much hide out when your shift is done on the air.
Yeah, because they think it's your fault.
Well, some do, yeah.
I mean, for God's sakes, I want to play golf. I'm dying to play golf. I'm watching it on TV. The whole thing. We played a couple weeks ago. It was nice, and all of a sudden, you got snow this morning and winter weather advisories. It's just for a day or two, right? Or is it?
Yeah, well, it'll be all gone. And, in fact, by late afternoon, you'll probably see some breaks in the clouds, a little sun coming back through. So it's a very temporary.
Boy, oh, boy. Old man winter rears his ugly head one more time. And we're getting snow this morning, no joke, on tax day. That's Robert Shields at WTOL in Toledo. I'm Michael Patrick Shields here in Michigan. It is Tax Day 2011. Michael Patrick Shields with you. I am standing outside of our American Metal Roof studio in the Gillespie Group Stadium District building right here on the Avenue of Michigan, just a couple blocks from the Capitol. And as you can see, this is the Hyundai, for instance, that I'm test driving for Freeborough Automotive. And as I run my finger across the top of the roof, yeah, you get a fingerful of snow. It's not just the kind of snow that falls and disappears. It is accumulating on the streets, making it slick, and right here in the on the roof of your car. So by the time your commute starts, maybe already started, you're going to have the windshield wipers on. You're going to have to watch it. It's icy and snowy. Believe it or not, though, Major League Baseball is going on, not here in Michigan, mind you. It was out in Oakland yesterday that the Tigers wrapped up a 4-game series with the A's, and radio broadcaster Rich Kincaid has the report.
Oakland's starting pitchers allowed the Tigers one earned run in 25-plus innings in the 4-game series. That's an ERA of 0.35. So you could say the Tigers were fortunate to split the series, which they did, in spite of yesterday's 5-1 setback. Trevor Cahill was the story Sunday, going 8, holding Detroit to only 4 hits. Casper Wells' solo homer, the only one that hurt him. He fanned 9 and walked none, and man, that's good pitching. Meanwhile, walks, 4 of them, cost Tigers starter and loser Brad Penny. The Tigers are 7-9, 4.5 games back of the surprise leaders in the AL Central, the Cleveland Indians. Detroit opens a 3-game series in Seattle tonight, first pitch at 10:10. Again, yesterday in Oakland, Michael Patrick, it was the A's 5, the Tigers 1. For Michigan's Morning Show, I'm Rich Kincaid.
Thank you, Rich. Back inside our American Metal Roof studio in the Gillespie Group Stadium District building. Jimmy Johnson was a winner yesterday at Talladega. And on the PGA Tour, it was, well, let's go out to Kuala Lumpur first, in Malaysia. Rory McIlroy, after blowing the Masters tournament with only 9 holes to go, came back strong and then lost again yesterday in the final round of the Malaysian Open. It was Matteo Manacero, a 17-year-old, beat Rory McIlroy down the stretch. And it's a tough couple of weeks for Rory from Northern Ireland. Brendan Steele, a rookie on the PGA Tour, now has a victory under his belt. Won yesterday at the Texas Open. That's down there in San Antonio. And he made about a 6-foot putt to do it. Big stuff yesterday there for him. Now he gets in the Masters, the Tournament of Champions, and all the invitational tournaments. John Cook double bogeyed the final hole in Tampa on the Champions Tour and figured that was bad news, but he got into a playoff anyway and ended up winning, beating J. Don Blake in Lutz, Florida. Yeah, they're playing golf in places, not in Michigan with the snow falling this morning, though. The Red Wings are going to square off against the Phoenix Coyotes, Game 3 in the Stanley Cup playoffs tonight in Phoenix. Well, Red Wings, now I went to the game with Pat and Molly Pritchard and Christine down in Detroit, and we left early when the Red Wings were up 4-0. Can you believe it? The Coyotes stormed back and almost tied the thing. It was 4-3. The Red Wings end up winning, making monkeys out of us because we're driving up to Birmingham on I-75 when the game suddenly goes crazy. Hockey Town was in full force. So that game will be tonight at 10:30. If you can't stay up late, we'll have the first report for you tomorrow morning. It is Boston Marathon Day. It is Tax Day, and it is snowing. Pat Gillespie is supposed to be on the other end of our line this morning. If we could reconnect with him, it's 6 minutes before the hour right now. Terry Lynn Land will join us coming up shortly. She's the former Secretary of State. Potential candidate for U.S. Senate, Pete Hoekstra, has decided not to run. He made his announcement on Friday. It wasn't the right time for him and his family. So that makes, I think, Terry Lynn Land the front runner in that race. And we'll see if she thinks so. And if this is helping her make her decision, she did say she wouldn't decide until September. The Dow was up 57 on Friday. The S&P was up 5, and the NASDAQ was up 5 points. Industrial production jumped 0.8% last month and showed a solid 6% increase for the first quarter of the year. Consumer sentiment was also on the rise with a modest improvement, according to the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index, which is a bellwether nationwide. NFL players and owners resume court-ordered talks tomorrow in Minneapolis, and 3 internet poker companies are looking at federal charges. Have you played any internet poker? Full Tilt Poker, Absolute Poker, and Poker Stars accused of violating the anti-internet gambling laws, from what we're told. So I think if you play online poker on those sites, you're out of luck. You'll have to do some real work today. 5 minutes before the hour, Michigan fairly ready in case of nuclear problems. That's according to a report published by the Journal of American Metal Association. Fairly ready. And Denard Robinson struggled. University of Michigan had their spring game on Saturday, and the weather was mean, let's face it. But Denard, on the very first play, ran for 55 yards. That's not much of a surprise, but the problem is he was 5 for 14 in passing for only 70 yards and had an interception nullified on a defensive penalty. He had some bobbled snaps, and so maybe he's having trouble adjusting to the Brady Hoke offense. Rio was number 1 at the box office this weekend, $40 million. The Conspirator was number 9 with $3.9 million. And I saw The Conspirator, and I fell asleep in the middle of it. I hope that doesn't make me, not sophisticated, but I just thought it was rather dull. We never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Maria Bello is 44. You would have seen her for Thank You for Smoking. And the TV series ER. And Kourtney Kardashian is 32 today. Happy birthday, darlings, to both of you. The controversy around Natalie Portman and her body. Next hour, I'll tell you all about that. It's Michael Patrick Shields, and it's Monday, a pure Michigan Monday with pure driven snow right now. Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Monday to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields on the sidewalk right here outside of our American Metal Roof studio in the Gillespie Group Stadium District building right here on the Avenue of Michigan, just a couple blocks from the Capitol. And the reason I'm outside this morning is the weather is story number 1 on this tax day. It is snowing across the state of Michigan. Certain counties have winter weather advisories. There could be up to 4 inches of snow complicating your commute this morning, or at least being pesky. When you open the window this morning, you go out to the car, you might be a little shocked. You're not going to be scraping ice. But as you can see here, if you're watching on Fox 47, as I run my hand across the roof of this Hyundai that I'm testing for Cheryl Freeborough at Hyundai Automotive, there is snow on the top. So it's snow that's accumulating, as we understand it, according to my brother Robert Shields, the weatherman in Toledo. It's going to accumulate on the grass, and then later today it's going to be warm, maybe up to the 40s. But this morning, you are getting snow on the 18th of April. Very unusual. Also very unusual that the 18th of April is tax day. Why is it tax day? Well, there was a national holiday in Washington, D.C. on Friday, so the 15th, which you normally think is tax day, is not tax day. It's today. So you've got by midnight tonight to file, whether you're going to do that electronically or you're going to go to a post office and drop it in the mail the old-fashioned way. You've got till midnight tonight. And even if you file for an extension, it's got to be filed by midnight tonight. Some post offices are staying open past midnight, or all the way to midnight is what I should say, past their normal hours, for you to be able to do that. And remember, if you file an extension, if you owe the government money, you still have to pay them. You can sort out the details later. 63%, something like that, of households in the United States don't owe the federal government any money. They get a return or they're break even, but you do owe state taxes, local taxes, and all the rest. So it's tax day, and yesterday was Palm Sunday, and today is also Boston Marathon Day. There will be 27,000 runners in Boston. That's the second biggest field in the history of the race. We'll talk about what is it like to run in the Boston Marathon with Dr. Christine Teneglia, my wife, the dentist, who has qualified for that race. You see, when you've got 27,000 people, they all qualified. It's not like just you or I can go and run in the Boston Marathon. You have to qualify. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, too. It is snowing this morning in parts of the state, right where I'm standing this morning, too. Let's get the rest of the report from Gary Austin, the news anchor. Good morning, Gary.
Well, good morning, Michael Patrick. And this update is service of the AARP, a membership group leading positive change and delivering value to people age 50 and over through information, advocacy, and service. So let's say the worst happens and we have some sort of a nuclear calamity. How ready is Michigan? Well, a new study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association and published in the Detroit News finds we are, quote, fairly ready, saying there are gaps in making sure everybody finds out about a disaster as quickly as possible. Some of the other problems included testing water and food for radiation contamination and how quickly that could be done. But the State Department of Community Health points out a plan has been in place and is being tested now. While these higher gasoline prices are getting the credit for the findings in this new study, more are opting to ride the train to get to where they need to go nowadays. Officials note this is making for less congestion on our roads and in turn resulting in less wear and tear on these roads as well, and officials say that's a good thing. Travel of a different kind, air travel, and over the weekend the unveiling of a brand new airport terminal at the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport, and officials say it's going to be ready for use by the end of the month. They say this is all about convenience. Officials say with new shops and restaurants and the like, this $39 million facility will provide a lot of that.
You think we can keep the air traffic controllers there awake, though? That's going to be the tricky part.
I would think so.
It happened again, I guess. Another air traffic controller fell asleep. Did you see that?
Yeah, it was at this time in the Miami area, and that's prompting officials with the government to say, you know, we've got to stay on top of this. This is uncalled for and unacceptable. New rules in place now very quickly to make sure not only are these facilities really well staffed, but also making sure rules and regs are in place to make sure folks who are on the job never fall asleep again.
Gary Austin, former Secretary of State Terry Lynn Land is on the other end of our line, the Republican, and I want to talk with her this morning, and you can join us in the conversation, too, if you would. We're in our American Metal Roof studio in the Gillespie Group Stadium District building. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. How you guys doing? So you still standing in the snow?
Well, I came inside now to warm up a little bit because my toes were getting a little frosty. It's really unbelievable. Also, by the way, Passover starts tonight at sundown, so the traditional holiday starts with the dinner called the Seder, but it's snowing on all these events where normally we expect spring-like conditions. Were you surprised by the announcement by Congressman Hoekstra, the former congressman, on Friday that he's decided not to run for United States Senate and not to try to get the Republican nomination to go up against Senator Stabenow?
Well, you know, Pete's done a great job as a congressman, and he would have made a great U.S. senator. And, you know, I am a little disappointed. I told him that. I thought that he really was at a point in his life where he could really contribute and bring something and be there to run a great race. So, yeah, I was a little disappointed, and, you know, he called me and let me know before he told everybody. So I wished him the best, and, you know, we left it at that.
You say that you're disappointed, but you're considering running, too. Doesn't this make it easier for you?
Well, we want to find a good candidate, and I'm going to take, you know, some time to look at this. And, you know, I mean, this is serious stuff. I mean, it's tax day. We're talking about our country and our debt and, you know, whether we're going to raise the debt ceiling. I mean, these are important issues that affect all of us and affect our children and our grandchildren, and it's something that we really need to be concerned about. And the fact that Congressman Hoekstra just came off of, you know, running a big race across the state, and also, too, just came out of Washington, has that experience, and, you know, could hit the ground running. It just made sense that, you know, he would be the best one to do that. So now we have to take a look and kind of go from there. Like I said, I thought he'd do a great job. I mean, it's about finding someone who will do that and can take that ball and get it going right now because we've got so much to do down there in D.C.
You are I think you'd be the front runner right now, wouldn't you be, for the Republican nomination?
Well, we'll have to see. You know, I'm sure everybody out there is putting their poll in the field to see where everything is at this point. There's a few other folks that have said they'll be interested, and one of them I think already filed, and another one is looking at filing. So there's a lot of interest in this race. I mean, things are changing after the last election. Folks have said they want to change, so more people are willing to take that on, which I think is great. The old party chairman in me is always excited when people want to get involved in their government and serve their country.
If it's yourself and Saul Lanuzzis, the former Michigan Republican Party chair, and then Rob Steele, the fellow who ran against John Dingell in Ann Arbor, and the judge from Ann Arbor, Randy Heckman, is it you two, you and Saul are the only two who have sort of statewide appeal, so that gives you a bit of a leg up, doesn't it?
Well, there's no doubt. You know, I've ran twice successfully in the state of Michigan. You know, I've served as Secretary of State and former county clerk before that. So there's no doubt that my name ID is probably the highest out there.
Yep.
But there's a funny thing. You can have high name ID, but with who the voters want, you know, might be somebody else. So you've got to take that in consideration, too. I mean, we just had a governor's race with 5 people, and Governor Snyder won, and, you know, he came out of a pack from basically no name ID. So, you know, it's interesting out there. People want change. They want somebody to look at it from a different perspective, and it doesn't necessarily mean the one who starts out in front is the one that ends up winning the race, as they say.
The last time we talked, you said that you would make a decision as to whether you were running by the Republican Leadership Conference in September. Is that still your timetable?
Well, I think what I meant by that, I heard you say that. I was listening to your show this morning. I went, did I say that? And I was going, yeah, I said that in the sense that you have to be up and running by September. There's no doubt. But I think you should make the decision before that. And I think that's something that needs to be done the next couple of months. And then you need to be at Mackinac, you know, ready to go with, you know, your name on the line and your team together. I think that's that's really where that is. Like I mentioned, too, in the past, you used to have to do so much so far ahead of time, but now with radio and TV and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, you can get your campaign going a lot quicker than in the old days. So it isn't as imperative that you get ahead, so early. You can wait a little bit longer, but I do think, by the time the Republicans meet in Mackinac and have their conference, that you have to be, with the team ready to go.
Wouldn't you just about want to anoint someone by the time you get to the Republican Leadership Conference? I mean, you are going up against an incumbent.
Yeah, I've never been to one where that's happened, but that would be a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, when you're going up against a two-term U.S. senator who has been able to raise money very easily, apparently, and has high-profile positions in Washington, you really, you got to have a full head of steam, I'm thinking.
Well, this is the thing, too, that's changed. The general election is a little different than we went through with the governor's race, is that it's going to be a national election. There's no doubt in my mind about that. The Republicans are so close to control in the Senate. They want it badly that they're going to be here in Michigan, and this is going to be a priority race. And as you mentioned, Debbie Stabenow, Senator Stabenow, has done a lot of work over the last few years campaigning. She's a tireless campaigner. There's no doubt about it. I've known her since she was a county commissioner back there in Ingham. So she knows what she's doing, and it's going to be a big race, and nobody should underestimate her.
Okay, is Donald Trump seriously going to run, or do you think he's just enjoying the spotlight?
My husband and I have that conversation every time he shows up in Fox News.
Yeah.
I think he's in. My husband doesn't, so there you go.
Okay, marital discord. We'll see what happens one way or another.
We'll see what happens.
All the best to you. Nice to hear your voice again.
Yeah, good enough. Thanks.
Sarah, it's Terry Lynn Land, the former Secretary of State, maybe candidate for United States Senate, who nice enough to listen to the program. 18 minutes after the hour, it's Michael Patrick Shields. Yeah, we are chilling in the summer, chilling in the spring, if you want to call it that. There is the white fluffy stuff coming down this morning. Let's go live out in front of our Gillespie Group Stadium District Building, American Metal Roofs studio, to Amanda Wall, who is on the sidewalk.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. I am here in front of the Hyundai Santa Fe, and it is chilly outside. I can tell you I wasn't expecting snow on April 18th. As you look down at the Capitol, it looks a little foggy, but it's from all the snow that's falling, and as I run my hand across the top of the car, you can see this black car, all the white snow that's gathered and is coming off. It's kind of flaking, and it's good snowball kind of weather. Back to you.
If you're watching on Fox 47, you can see the snow falling. If you're on the radio with us across the state of Michigan, you can hear the snow falling. Or is that Amanda and her teeth chattering? Not sure, but it is snowing, and the snow will be sticking to the grass apparently, and then the temperatures are going to go up later in the day. She was right out there in front of our American Metal Roof studio, in front of the Hyundai Santa Fe that I'm test driving for Cheryl Freeborough from Hyundai Automotive in the Lansing area. It's only $18,995 pre-owned and certified. That's way less than the Blue Book value, and probably a good car to be driving in these conditions. Cheryl Freeborough is on the other end of our line this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
Well,
yeah, that's a perfect car. I just was talking to somebody yesterday about how they had it in a very snowy condition and were thrilled with it.
Terrific.
I was at an event yesterday, and somebody came up to me that recognized me from Lansing. I'm in Port Huron, by the way.
Is it snowing in Port Huron this morning?
Very light flakes are coming down right now. I'm sitting outside on the deck looking at Lake Huron and swinging.
That's just what you want to do, is sit on the deck and look at Lake Huron and dodge the snowflakes.
And the snows are coming down. It's really pretty. My mother-in-law's going to get mad at me, but it's pretty.
Oh, my gosh, it's unbelievable. Well, hey, I want to ask you, too, in the auto business, General Motors is going to unveil its all-new version of the Chevy Malibu.
Mhm.
The only thing different is they're going to do it on the Internet from China. Shanghai Auto Show is where this is going to be webcast, and it's interesting. The car business has changed, hasn't it?
It's changed so much. It's so global. And although people like to talk about American built, obviously China and building in China and the things that are going to go on is just unbelievably global. And it's kind of nice to hear that, actually.
Well, yeah, in the old days, you stood there in front of a group of people, and they had a cloth on top of the car, and
Yes.
they pulled it off, and presto, they took pictures, and a week later or 2 weeks later or a month later in a magazine, you saw pictures of them. Now, right from Shanghai, you can see whatever you want.
Everything's going to the Internet, too. I mean,
Yeah.
people come in with all their information already. They've gathered it from the Internet. They can buy a car. They can literally put a car together on the Internet, know the pricing. They can do comparative shopping. You don't even have to leave your home, your jammies, and your coffee, you know.
Yeah, it's astonishing. So somebody right now listening, let's say in Grand Rapids, could log on, or Traverse City, could log on to Hyundai of Lansing,
Right.
shop one of your pre-owned vehicles. It doesn't even have to be a Hyundai. They could buy a
Right.
Cadillac, for instance,
Mhm.
if they want, and virtually have it delivered to them without ever even coming to the dealership.
They can.
It's
They
amazing.
literally can. The best thing they want to do, though, is test drive it. So they do want to come in because, you still want to see it up front and in person, and you want to drive that vehicle. It's going to be exciting to get that Malibu here so we can drive it and touch it and feel it, see the fit and finish, and feel how it drives, too. Internet's fun for information, but I still think you need to be there to see how you're going to be taken care of and how the vehicle feels for you.
Well, drive safely this morning. The last time
Thank
we talked to you on a snowy day, you ended up in a ditch, and we don't want that to happen again.
No, that won't happen. I'm in the Santa Fe.
Okay, very good. Me too. It's the Hyundai Santa Fe, way less than Blue Book value if you're looking for one, and that's Cheryl Freebro. We said that it's the start of Passover tonight with the Seder dinner. It is tax day across America, and also the running of the Boston Marathon. Dr. Christine Teneglia, dentist to the stars in the mid-Michigan area. My wife is a past runner in the Boston Marathon. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael. I ran in the 108th Boston Marathon, and this happens to be the 115th Boston Marathon, and they're all unique in their different ways. And I think that if there's a little bit of snow today while they're running, that will make this 115th Boston Marathon memorable. But I ran in 2008, and it was the second hottest Boston Marathon in their history. And they used to start the Boston Marathon at around 12 o'clock so they could get the runners to Hopkinton where the race starts. But I notice now that they start it a little bit earlier, which is good for the heat and all the festivities. But, I've been, it's one of the best premier events in running because it's the oldest marathon in the world's history. And you have to qualify to run the marathon, so it's quite an accomplishment just to get there. But, I've been reading that book by Ann Doyle, Powering Up.
Yes.
So I decided, I'm going to check out to see when the first woman was allowed to run the Boston Marathon.
Oh, boy.
So when I looked...
Was it you?
In there... No, it wasn't me, but close. The first woman ran the Boston Marathon in 1966, and she had to run as what we call a bandit. She wasn't allowed to have a race number, and for 3 years she ran without... Roberta Gibb ran the Boston Marathon without a race number and had to skirt people from trying to take her out of the marathon. It wasn't until in 1966, that's 44 years ago, almost 45 years ago. That's the same age as myself. I didn't mean to give that away, but 1972 was the first time a woman was able to run the Boston Marathon with a bib number. That is not very long ago. I don't think women in today's society realize how far women have come and still how much further they need to come to cross a lot of barriers.
Remember, it was a woman that cheated in the Boston Marathon, too, wasn't it? Remember that woman who tried to take a shortcut? I forget her name.
Yes, I remember. But I'm sure there's been men, too, so don't forget that.
She got on a bus or something, and she took a shortcut and jumped back in the line somewhere else. And I remember that as clear as a bell. I just can't remember her name.
Yeah, me neither. But that wasn't very nice to bring that up.
Of me to point
You're in
that
trouble
out.
tonight for that.
Very misogynist of me to point that out. I think that one of the reasons they may start it earlier, the start times are staggered between 9 and 11 because 27,000 people are running down this very narrow street, and that's the second biggest field in history. I don't know why more people are qualifying now, but maybe Oprah made it fashionable, but people seem to like to, maybe it's like a bucket list thing to qualify for the Boston Marathon.
Well, absolutely. It's like one of the premier sporting events, along with the Super Bowl, the running of the Bulls,
Kentucky
and different
Derby.
events like that. But when you start this race, the reason it's staggered is because you have all those runners, but you're running down a 2-lane road with trees on either side. So you're running down a tunnel for essentially 6 miles. You can't get the water. The airflow is stagnant because there's just so many people running through there. But what they do is they start with your time, so they go off in waves.
Yeah.
And the
can you
the elite
imagine?
athletes running first, and then at 10:20 is when someone like myself would have the potential to start, depending on my seat time, because they put you in what they call corrals.
Yeah.
So you may have a 20 by 20 corral of people who run 7-minute pace, and then 7:10.
Did you get to wear one of those crowns on your head when you finished the marathon? One of those leaf things that they put on your head?
No, I didn't get to have that opportunity.
Only the winner gets that?
I think only the winner, yes.
And did you get one of those silver jackets that you surround yourself in one of those silver jackets?
Absolutely, I sure did. Everyone gets one of those when they come across.
Pretty cool. Well, congratulations on qualifying for the Boston Marathon and running in it. And you won it, didn't you?
Absolutely, Michael. I won it for you.
Okay, good. Rosie Ruiz, it was, back in 1980, who cheated in the Boston Marathon. That's Dr. Christine Teneglia, a dentist to the stars here in mid-Michigan, who ran in the Boston Marathon. I was sitting with her yesterday, no coincidence, in church. And in front of us, Tom and Lupe Izzo and their son Stephen were right in front of us on this Palm Sunday Mass at St. John's, which is one of the longest Masses of the year, by the way. And I'm proud to say we all made it to the end. But I looked left across the aisle, and there was Sam and Judy Ide also singing and enjoying the service on Palm Sunday. And Pat Gillespie, who is Sam Ide's son-in-law, is on the other end of our line this morning. Good morning to you.
Morning, Michael Patrick. How you doing?
Good. It was Palm Sunday, so they gave us all a palm. And one of the things I noticed, Sam had this all through the Mass while he was singing and carrying on. He was very meticulously sort of weaving the palm into like a, I don't even know what to call it. It was like a fancy weave. It was very impressive. Have you seen him do that?
Oh, my goodness. I think a lot of people don't know that's one of his special talents. His ability to weave palms is second to none.
You know, and it's a hidden talent because nobody's ever made anything of it. And all the charitable awards he's been given in that side, I mean, he was meticulous. And it was a beautiful piece of art what he'd weave the palm into by the time the Mass was over.
He probably had 4 or 5 of them stacked there. In fact, he called the house in the morning and said, get extra palms so he can teach the grandkids how to do it, because he's famous in our family for being able to, keep the kids occupied during Palm Sunday Mass because they love the fact that he can do that.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, and I know I saw Stephen Izzo, too. He was doing a pretty good job of it, but nobody was equal. And I thought if we could get, like 700,000 foreign workers to start weaving these things, we'd have a new industry on our hands.
You know what? That could help bring Lansing back single-handedly, probably.
We could be the weaving cap. Jeffrey Feiger thought that legalizing prostitution and marijuana for Detroit would make that city proud again, be the Amsterdam of the United States. We could be the palm weaving capital of the world.
Well, I'll call Sam today, and maybe he can get that started. I think he'd be the one to do it.
All right, let me know. We'll get some angel investors involved. Funny. Right. Did you like that pun? Angel investors, Palm Sunday?
It's pretty good.
That's why they gave me a TV show and radio show, I think. Thank you to Pat Gillespie. It's the Gillespie Group Stadium District building we broadcast from the American Metal Roof studio. Congratulations to Linda Solomon. She was inducted yesterday into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. You've seen her work. She's on the red carpet for the Academy Awards. And go to Google up Linda Solomon, and you'll see she's been with every celebrity known to man, including Robert Redford, whose movie debuted this weekend. Linda Solomon, how did it feel to go into the Journalism Hall of Fame? Felt about as good as I did going to her when she wasn't on the line. Thank you very much. We'll reconnect with Linda Solomon at 33 minutes after the hour. By the way, that movie, the Robert Redford picture that I talked about, Conspirator, not so good in my opinion. It was number 9 on the box office this weekend, and it was Doris Kearns Goodwin who wrote it, and it's a Civil War, post-Civil War drama about rounding up the people who killed President Lincoln. So it has a really interesting premise, and the story is very interesting. I'm afraid it just came off flat. The first couple minutes, fascinating when they show Lincoln getting assassinated and what it was like at the time and the furor that erupted. But a little bit later, I felt I did nod off in the middle. I hope that doesn't make me seem like a savage, but I fell asleep in the Conspirator. So see it at your own risk. See Denard Robinson at your own risk, too. The Michigan Spring game was this weekend, the football game. Well, sure enough, he pleased the crowd by running for 55 yards on the first play. That's what we know about Denard Robinson. The problem is he bobbled some snaps. He was 5 of 14 in passing for only 70 yards, threw an interception, which was nullified by a defensive penalty. But some people, the headline is, Denard Robinson struggles with the new offense because they put in a new offense for the Michigan Wolverines, and maybe he's going to have a little time adjusting to that. Just a warning to the Wolverines. Amanda Wall?
There's a tweet by Michael Rosenberg that was pretty interesting. He said, I just drove through the snow to fly to a desert city where it's 91 degrees outside so I can watch a game played on ice. He'll be at the
Red
Wings game
tonight, 10:30 in Phoenix. We'll have the full report for you tomorrow morning with Ken Cal. It's Michael Patrick Shields, and it's Tax Day Monday. Well, you recognize that theme song. It cuts through the clutter of your Sunday morning and has you drop the newspaper, put the coffee down, and watch NBC's Meet the Press. David Gregory formally announced in December of 2008 that he would succeed the beloved and late Tim Russert, and now has made the program his own, and he's with us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Gregory.
Good morning.
You've decided to make Governor Granholm sort of a part of the furniture around there. She shows up from time to time on Meet the Press. How is she doing?
Well, she's doing great. She's going to be on the program Sunday, part of our roundtable. And, it's been part of an effort that I've had to widen the repertoire of the voices that you're going to see as part of our roundtable, our political roundtable discussion. And I think the governor has unique experience. She's a compelling voice in the Democratic Party. And so she's somebody who's welcome around the table. And I think you'll see that in the course of our roundtable rather than it just being columnists or journalists. We like to widen it out. I've also got Senator Mike Lee on the program, a Tea Party member, this Sunday. So we like to mix that up so we can have a conversation that includes people from different stripes, politicians, columnists, journalists, and get them together for our political roundtable.
I had dinner with Governor Granholm and her husband a couple of weeks ago, and I told her that I was watching MSNBC, and she says, "Oh, I'm going to tell everybody you were watching MSNBC." I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "You're supposed to be an impartial radio host. What were you doing watching a part of..." Does that bug you a little bit? Because you're closely related to MSNBC as well, that they've gone left when, I presume, you try to stay in the middle.
Well, that's certainly the case in terms of me staying in the middle. Look, I think you have to distinguish. There's a news-gathering operation that is NBC News that is feeding a lot of MSNBC during the day. Mm-hmm. And then there is a primetime MSNBC lineup that is a more partisan lineup. And there is a distinction. I think the audience understands that. I think if you're watching our news product on MSNBC during the course of the day, it is not agenda-driven. There's no systemic bias, but you have hosts in the primetime hours who do have a point of view, and so that's the distinction. And so I think people understand that Meet the Press is one thing, MSNBC Primetime is something different.
I hope so, because I like watching both of them, and I'm a nonpartisan, middle-of-the-road kind of guy. David Gregory, the host of Meet the Press, is with us right now, and I wonder if Donald Trump is serious about running for president, and if he does decide to run, I'd love to see you take him on Meet the Press and just take him apart, because you could do that, I think, very easily, right? He hasn't really been challenged.
I think that's right. And I think that there's a lot of positions beyond this birther nonsense that should be questioned and that should be scrutinized. Trump is an interesting figure right now, and he's sort of catching a little bit of a wave that is a little bit outside the mainstream of the Republican Party. He's creeping up in the polls because he's getting a lot of publicity, and he's a known guy to begin with, and he's got plenty of money himself. Mm-hmm. But whether he's a serious candidate or not, I think he's got a lot of views that would put him outside the mainstream in terms of getting the nomination. But he's somebody who's certainly getting a lot of attention right now. I can tell you, having spent some time at the White House this week, they're still mostly focused on Mitt Romney. And the reason they are is because he's somebody who's got the right combination for the long haul. He may have some difficulties in the primaries, especially the early primaries, but he's got the resources to keep this fight more drawn out, and you could see him standing at the end of it.
We will see about that, and we'll see about it in small doses every Sunday morning with you on Meet the Press. I know that you have 3 young children, and I know that for you to do the job that you do, you have to be married, in a sense, to your work. How do you manage that BlackBerry in your hand, your eye on the news, all the research and studying and networking that you have to do with raising a family?
Well, it's an important balance, and I think, I also benefit from the program just being once a week. It does create, even though I'm doing all of those things, I haven't enough flexibility in the part of the week. My wife is also a prominent attorney and trial lawyer, so she works very hard and travels even more than I do. But I think we're committed to the idea that we both have to carry a lot of the weight, and so I'm very active with my kids in the course of the week, and I just make the time. I made the decision that I have to make the time to pick the kids up from school a couple times during the week, or take my son to violin or baseball practice, and I just work that very diligently into my day. And again, because of the way my work rolls out, I can be studying at night. I can be, on calls during the day and thinking about what we're doing this week and beyond, and still manage the rest of it. So it's not easy. It's a kind of a precarious balance, but I think we're doing a pretty good job at it.
Yeah, I find it's almost like you have a B track of your life that's going constantly. And with technology, the BlackBerries and the 24-hour news cycle now, I mean, you live your life, and I got to believe in your position, you've got that B track going all the time with one ear on Washington.
Yeah, well, there's no question. And so, I'm talking to people, I'm preparing for the program, I'm constantly, you're right. I mean, there's networking, there's other appearances. I did a panel discussion for the Brookings Institution yesterday about U.S.-Islamic relationship. So I'm doing lots of different things, but I often tell, my team that there's no distinction between my work life and my home life. So, it could be at the White House for a meeting at 11:30 and, pick Max up from violin at 2:30. I mean, it all is sort of wrapped up into one life. There's no big wall between them.
A quick last question. Is Senator Carl Levin the scariest guy to interview?
He's been a good guy to interview. I mean, I've had him on just recently talking about Egypt and also talking about Afghanistan. He's an important voice, especially in America's role overseas. So I've been pretty happy to have him on.
Thank you very much. We saw you with Congressman Mike Rogers a couple of weeks ago too. David Gregory, thank you for the time this morning. I know it's precious in your position. We saw you on Morning Joe this morning too. That's David Gregory, the host of Meet the Press. I'm Michael Patrick Shields. Certainly is a manic Monday today. It's tax day. Some confusing. It's supposed to be Friday, April 15th. This time it's the 18th, and it's supposed to not be snowing today. After all, baseball season's underway and been playing golf and everything. All of a sudden, we go outside in front of our Gillespie Group Stadium District building and our American Metal Roof studio, where Amanda Wall is standing as we play some Christmas music for her this morning in front of the Hyundai that I'm test driving for Hyundai of Lansing. And Amanda, what's the skinny?
Good morning, Michael Patrick. I am in front of a Santa Fe, and I wish I was in Santa Fe right now. It is freezing, and when I gave a report about a half an hour ago, I could see the Capitol. Right now, I can barely make out a faint shape. It's snowing pretty hard right now. There's really big flakes. This is good packing snow. It's the kind you'd wish for when you were little. You could go outside. It's not sticking to the ground at all, but it is sticking to the car. There's the black Santa Fe. As you kind of run your hand across it, you can see I'm making a snowball right now.
Yep, she is. Trust me. I see it.
And I'm obviously a girl because it didn't really make it to the window.
Oh, she threw it at me.
But,
how awful. You know why she's throwing that snowball at me? Because Rosie Ruiz was the one in the Boston Marathon, the woman who cheated. That was 1980. She crossed the finish line first and then was credited as the winner, but they found out she hadn't run the entire course. There was a shortcut. That's why Amanda's throwing snowballs at me this morning. So it's all in your hair. It's all stuck in your hair. You have a white dusting.
It is. It's stuck in my hair. It's stuck all over my coat. And, you know, Michael Rosenberg, the writer, said that he wrote in a tweet, I just drove through the snow to fly to a desert city where it's 91 degrees to watch a game on ice. Because the Red Wings are playing right now somewhere where it's pretty warm. So maybe I'm going to have a plane over at the Lansing airport and head over and watch the game today, too.
Well, you'd be better than I did. I went with Pat and Molly Pritchard, Christine and I did Saturday down to Joe Louis Arena. The game was at 1 o'clock at Hockeytown up against the Phoenix Coyotes. And the Red Wings scored 3 goals right in front of us in the first period, right in front of where we were sitting. And we decided, well, you know, where do you want to go to dinner? So we left after the second period with the Red Wings up 4-1, thinking, you know, that's a big spread. We got no problem. By the time we got to the parking deck, it was 4-2. As we're driving up I-75, it's 4-3. And I'm thinking, this is a barn burner. And there are people in that stadium who are loving it. The place was full of red. And we were on the way to Birmingham to dinner. But luckily, the Red Wings hung on and won. And so they'll play tonight with a 2-0 lead. The National Weather Service has issued winter weather advisories for Allegan and Berry counties, hazardous weather outlooks for some areas. And, in Benton Harbor, the emergency manager is already in action. The first time ever under the sweeping new state legislation, emergency manager Joseph Harris has suspended the decision-making powers of city officials in Benton Harbor, where we are heard on the radio. Sad news for democracy in Michigan, according to Mark Gaffney from the Michigan AFL-CIO. He says we can now see the true nature of the emergency manager system. It has to do with a controversial trash hauling contract and lawsuits related to that and competition for water services and meetings that dragged on for hours. Your tax deadline is tonight, whether you're filing or whether you're filing an extension. And on the other end of our line, David Seelig, the very experienced federal tax practitioner and a former Marine. Thank you very much for being available this morning. David, can you hear me? David Seelig, can you hear me, sir? He cannot. Well, if he were, he was going to tell you that when it's all said and done, nearly half of all American households don't owe federal income tax. What do you mean we don't owe? Well, you're getting a refund or you break even. That's 69 million households. You don't get off scot-free, though. After all, there's state taxes, local income taxes, property taxes, sales tax. You're paying tax one way or another. But, maybe they held on to your money for a little while this year, and you're not going to have to pay federal taxes anyway. Some people will, and they got to do it by midnight tonight, whether you file electronically or whether you drop it in the post office. Some of the post offices are staying open past regular hours all the way to midnight, so you can get that. You got to get that postmark on there is what you got to do. The NFL players and owners are resuming the court-ordered talks tomorrow in Minneapolis. Hoping there's football. The draft is coming up. They're going to have a draft, and they might not even have a season. Tigers yesterday lost 5-1 to the Oakland A's. They split that 4-game series with Oakland, and they continue their West Coast road trip tonight. They go to Seattle to take on the Mariners. And once again, you may not want to stay up late and watch that. We'll have the first report for you here tomorrow morning. Denard Robinson struggling in the spring game. Mark D'Antonio, the Michigan State football coach, will be joining us later as they get ready for their green and white game, the spring game, over at Michigan State. Justin Amash, the freshman congressman from West Michigan, apparently owes more than $100,000 in campaign debts from his election. And Dan Banashek of Crystal Falls, also in our listening area in Traverse City and Petoskey, he's got debts too. $133,000 for Banashek, $100,000, I guess, for Justin Amash. So it was actually $160,000. They're going to pay it off, I guess, but it's time to start fundraising, believe it or not, for the re-elect campaign. Alrighty. Television viewers, thanks for being with us this morning. Radio listeners, stay right where you are. There's another hour of this, your Monday morning, coming your way right after the news. I'm Michael Patrick Shields.
Goodbye, goodbye, good friends, goodbye. Goodbye. And tomorrow, just like today, the moon, the bear, and the big blue